I'm gonna ask you an honest question. Do you ever feel like people don't value you in the way that you might value other people or things that are super important in your life? Do you ever feel taken for granted? Well, the topic for this video is why it is that you're being taken for granted and how to never be taken for granted ever again. It is to understand the relationship between people needing to work for something as well as their state of consciousness and meeting the needs of their state of consciousness in order for people to appreciate what it is that you have to offer. Because there's nothing worse than putting in time capital, emotional capital, mental capital, just love into meeting somebody and having them just not get it. I know exactly how that feels. So in this video, sitting here in Charlotte, North Carolina, we're gonna go very, very deep on how to make sure that that never happens ever again. So I'm gonna start this video by making a big confession. For you to travel to North Carolina would probably cost you a couple $1,000s. But for me, as a business owner, to travel to North Carolina, I'm probably losing about $200,000 to $300,000 because I'm choosing to run an event in a small market rather than doing it in a place like New York, LA, Chicago, San Francisco, or places that are gonna turn out a way bigger crowd. So that being the case, when I choose to come here because I've just want to come to Carolina for a long time. It's just something I wanted to do as a personal thing. Well, when I'm sitting here and I paid a couple $100,000 to be here in opportunity cost for my business, you better believe that I'm looking at everything. So I'm sitting out here just staring at this view of the city. And for me, this is a $100,000 view. How much is this view worth to you? Probably not very much. So that's an important lead-in for this topic of taking people for granted or how you've been taken for granted, because one of the first principles that you're going to learn about this is that ultimately people value that which they work for. For me, this is literally $100,000 or couple $100,000 view. For you, it's a click on a video online. Very different. Now, this is funny because in Los Angeles, there's places like Disney World or the Hollywood sign, and if a tourist comes in to LA, they're gonna immediately run as quick as they can to Disney World, or Disneyland, sorry, or they're gonna quickly go to the Hollywood sign. They're gonna take it in because they know it's their one chance. But usually a local in Los Angeles has never even been to Disneyland. They've never been to the Hollywood sign because it's always there. So if you do even take them to Disneyland or you take them to the Hollywood sign, they're like, oh, this is cool. I could have gone anytime. But that person who flew in from Japan or from China, for them, it's the biggest deal in the world. Let me tell you the first time that I truly understood this. I was in a place called Molokai in Hawaii. And there's almost nothing there, but it's amazing, by the way. It's a tiny little island. You've probably heard of Kauai, Maui, Oahu, Big Island, but you might have never heard of Lanai or Molokai. They're small little couples islands without a lot going on. So I went to Molokai. It's about 5,000 people living there, something like that. And the only really two big attractions there are the sea cliffs, which are amazing, and then this thing called the phallic rock, which is this rock shaped like a phallus. It's actually it's totally awesome. So I'm talking to the people who live there, and I want to know what they think of the sea cliffs or this crazy phallic rock. And as I'm speaking to them, I notice a pattern, which is that none of them have been to the sea cliffs. None of them have been to the phallic rock. And I say, there's 5,000 people here. There's nothing on this tiny island. How come you've never been there? And they all say the same thing. It's always there, yeah? It's always not going anywhere, yeah? It's like you're 53 years old and you've lived here your whole life. You've never been. They completely take it for granted. Now, what I would ask you, beginning in this topic of never being taken for granted again, is the type of reaction that you're generating. Is that like a tourist who has a chance to visit something? It's their one chance, and they're strategizing and conceptualizing how it is that they can get to see this thing and take it in and look at every little detail of it? Or are people looking at you the way that I'm looking at the skyline here, trying to see every little line in those buildings back there and take in the southern vibe of Carolina? Is that how they're looking at you? Or are they looking at you like the local who just thinks about the phallic rock And honestly, they could care less about it because they know that it's always there and they know that it's not going anywhere. Which one are you? And most likely, given that most people are probably the second, what I would ask you is, what is it about human nature that you need to understand so that you don't fall into that trap? But more importantly, what specific behaviors do you need to change so that you can be the former and not the latter? So if you have good social intuition, you can probably get a sense of the frustration in my voice in this topic. And the reason why is because this is something that I grew up with, probably as a result of light level autism, being a little bit codependent, being a people pleaser. And so what happened was I couldn't read social cues. And so I thought, how do you make people like you? And so I just thought in my mind, well, you know, not understanding social dynamics, I thought, well, the way you make people like you is you're really nice to them. You offer value to them. And when you're super duper nice to them, they're going to appreciate you and you're going to make friends. So in my own case, I would be, 5 or 6 years old or 10 or 11 years old, and I'd meet people and I would just start reciting facts or just try to do them favors, just try to bring them things, thinking that they would like me. And for me, I kind of just wanted to have like a cool family. I wanted to have cool friends. So I would have certainly appreciated if people did that for me. I was lonely. Well, why wouldn't they appreciate it if I do that for them? And this is something that went on for many, many years. And I saw it in my dating life to where I would overgive on the front end and it would have pretty bad results. But I also saw it in my general social life or making friends, where the way that I would make friends, I would just try to do people favors. I would try to, help their life, give them facts, give them coaching on things that I'd figured out, things that I thought were really cool. And the result was that people tended to tune me out and not really want to hear what I have to say, even in areas where I've really studied it and put a lot of time and energy into getting good in that area. So I never want to have to play games. I don't want to have to deliberately not offer value. If I have something to share, I'd really prefer to be able to just offer that. I don't want to have to hold back. Why not just share it? For me, it's actually fun to share it. So why wouldn't I be sharing it? That's weird to not do that. But the problem is, what happened in my case, what I found again and again, was that when I would just share it so readily, people actually wouldn't appreciate it at all. It's the craziest thing. Drove me totally nuts for many, many years. Now, I have a buddy, Tim, who was with my team way back in the day. We're still good friends. And Tim would always call me out on this. He's from Australia. And he'd say, mate, you don't need to say so much. I remember one time I bumped into a colleague of mine named Brent Smith. Amazing guy, by the way. I love Brent. And Brent had just got glasses. And so Brent was talking about his glasses, and then I talked about all the different pros and cons of contact lenses and the different things I'd learned about contact lenses and the different types of frames that you could have and all the different ways that he could sport the glasses, kind of like when I do a seminar now, right? And my buddy Tim, he says to me, he goes, I was about 26 at this point, maybe 27. He says, mate, less is more, mate. I say, Tim, I have all this amazing information for Brent about his glasses. Brent, if you're watching this, what's up, man? We're sitting at a seminar, old school seminar. And I said, Tim, I want to help Brent. Why would I hold that back? He goes, mate, less is more. And he says, mate, concentrate on the vibe. Just give a good vibe. That was a weird thing for me because back then, again, with light level autism, I was very disconnected from vibes. I didn't feel social vibes very well. What I felt was me just sort of giving information and not really being able to read the social cues very well, but thinking that this is what I would appreciate, so extrapolating that to what somebody else would appreciate. Well, let's think about what Brent might have been experiencing from his end. First of all, he's perfectly happy with his glasses. Second of all, everybody's on their journey and they want to figure things out for themselves. They don't need somebody rambling and blurting things out to them. That's a bit weird. Likewise, if he wanted help, he would ask for it. Also, when he's talking about his glasses, it wasn't as serious of a discussion as in my autistic, people-pleasing mind, my codependent mind, that I thought that it was. For him, what he's doing is he's vibing. What does social vibing mean? Social vibing means that he's just trying to elevate the mood. He's trying to just joke around, oh, I got some glasses. Right, imagine that. How's it go? Owen, haven't seen you in forever. This seminar is awesome. Just got some glasses. Now, notice how I'm saying that. Try to teach you some social skills here if this doesn't come naturally for you. Look at it. Owen, haven't seen you forever. How have you been? This seminar is awesome. Look, I got some glasses. I love these. Hey, you know what, man? Those glasses right there, You know, you could try it in this way, and you could be trying contacts. Oh, you know, I couldn't handle contacts. I had the same problem. You know, when I couldn't get on contacts, I had to go back 4 different times to try the contacts. I tried the contacts again and again until I got it. You know, you can get it, you know. Cool, man. Great seminar, right? Brent, the glasses, man. You got to listen to me, bro. Look what I'm doing. Now, I could see that Brent was tuning out a little bit. Brent's nothing but amazing to me, by the way. Amazing guy. What's up, bro? But Brent, who's been amazing to me, he understands that I'm kind of half out of it, and he's very patient. He's a super cool guy. So he just kind of rolls with it. But Tim is looking at me. Tim's trying to help me. And Tim just keeps saying, mate, less is more. It's about the vibe, mate. It's about the vibe. And here's the thing. If Brent had wanted help with that area, then he would have asked for it. But likewise, what if it had got to the point where my vibe had been so good and so much fun that all of a sudden he wants to get more rapport with me? I don't think Brent's even in that space, to be honest. He's an incredibly independent guy. But let's just say that Brent had been in that space where this guy's so cool, and then he would be trying to get into conversation with me. He would be then prodding me to give him information, and then that information would be valued by him. But instead, I was disconnected from the vibe. I'm over offering, disconnected from the energy, because I don't even feel social energy at this point. So if you look at what's going on here, what we're seeing is a combination of a couple different factors. A, like I said, I'm not reading social cues well. I'm not seeing that he's tuning me out. I'm not sensing it. So he's taking me for granted. Then, even if I do sense that he's tuning me out a bit, my brain goes into a spiral and I think, well, what would he want? He'd probably want what I would want. All the tips on the glasses. Well, what's happening there? When you're disconnected from vibes, what happens is you think that, this is very subtle, you think that if you keep making the world better, that you'll finally be happy, right? It's like, why are nerds who are often very unhappy, why are they so scientific and logical? Logic, in many ways, is a function of being unhappy. The need to go out and make a ton of money, often that's a function of being unhappy. It can also be a function of joy, and I could talk about that in other videos, but in many ways, it can be a function of being unhappy. Oh, I'm unhappy, so I need to find every math equation. I need to build a billion-dollar company. I'm unhappy. That's why a lot of the most unhappy people in the world that are not very popular, they're nerds. They get ahead where, you know, to be honest, a lot of time people that are pretty happy, they're not as financially successful. Really, I think you should find a space in between. Again, I'm rambling like I always do. So I'm missing the social cues. I'm seeing a little bit of retraction in what social cues I am able to see. Then I'm overloading with value, and I'm unhappy. So now what I'm doing is, because I'm unhappy, I'm trying to find some way to be happy, and then I'm putting somebody into that kind of vibe by over offering. Then from there, what I'm doing is, rather than making a vibe that would draw other people in and make them try to get more information out of me, I'm offering it all up front, which now they know that I'm always there. I'm not going anywhere. And so just like Disneyland for a local person in Los Angeles, or just like this view here for somebody local to Charlotte, North Carolina, I'm that person that's always gonna be there. And because I'm always gonna be there, the selective focus, the RAS, is never gonna tune in to what it is that I have to offer. I've done this a lot in my life. In a weird way, and this isn't very cool, but also is cool in a way too, when I actually built out my company and doing seminars, I was trying to find people who would actually appreciate what it is that I have to offer. And what's cool is I found a niche of people who do think that a lot of these insights are cool. And so that's been great, because it allowed me to do what I want to do, which is to give nuances and ideas on anything and everything. That's been great. But at the same time, something that I have to remind myself is, what is the vibe? What is a good vibe? And how can I put out a good vibe and then draw people into me where they want more of what I have to offer? Well, when you're going out and meeting somebody right off the bat, let's say that you're meeting someone who you want to make friends with, network with, somebody who you're attracted to, want to get a date with, somebody who you'd like to go further with in whatever capacity, if you're putting out good vibes right on the front end, that's going to draw them in. And because you're putting out good vibes, you're clearly self-amused. You're doing it because you're enjoying it. Now, as you put out good vibes, they're going to want to know more about you. They're going to want to know more about your opinions, but they're going to have to try to get it out of you, rather than you sitting there kind of powering it onto them when they haven't even asked for it. Now, when they get it out of you, they're seeing it in a completely different way, because they had to extract that information. They had to go somewhere to get it. Imagine this. Look, there's 2 different types of information. One is you can click a button on the internet and just get pile drive with information. The other information is you have to fly all the way to somewhere in Asia and climb to the top of a mountain. And the wise person is sitting there at the top of the mountain, stroking their beard. And you say, what's the secret? What's the secret? Person on the top of the mountain, and they say the secret to life is And notice, like, you're probably already hooked. What's the person on top of the mountain think? We think that we have to climb to the top of the mountain to hear the information, when in fact that information could be all around us right now. And the reason why is our state of consciousness. So that's what I'm going to explain next. I think we've laid some good groundwork here. We've talked about how if you're in a city and something is always available, you probably don't value it as much. We talked about how the overgiving, being socially disconnected, not socially aware. If you're not happy, then you extrapolate what you'd want, you kind of pummel it onto somebody else. They don't appreciate it, you're not drawing them in, they're not valuing. We've talked about that. But the next thing I want to talk about is somebody's state of consciousness. The state of consciousness that we see about human beings in the world. And this is probably your state of consciousness, but also other people's state of consciousness. And that is a consciousness to where we struggle to be present. And oftentimes we need to work for something, to clasp for something in order to really let it in. Okay, so what I want to do next is break into two important elements of human psychology that you've got to be aware of to have empathy for other people, but also to realize how to not fall in this weird downward spiral of being taken for granted. The first one is that human beings, we only tend to value that which we invest into. Now, the reason why is because this is a function of evolutionary psychology. So let's say that you're in prehistoric times and you'd put in a huge effort to build a place to live, or you'd put in a huge effort to hunt an animal, or a huge effort to go get some fruit or some vegetables. Part of your evolutionary wiring is that if you put in a huge amount of time to get it, you don't want to just have that be a sunk cost. There's only so much time and energy in your actual lifespan. So much mental capital, emotional capital, energetic capital, all that. I mean, there's only so much. There's a scarcity of it. So that being the case, what tends to happen is that if you put a lot into something, you're terrified to lose it. And funny enough, if you're putting energy into somebody and then they're not really investing back that much, and then that draws you in to invest more and more, what happens is you become terrified to lose them. And then you get to a point where every little move they make, you're on edge. They make a little joke, you're like, ha ha ha. They say, let's go over here, you're like, okay. They say, you know what I think of you? Oh, what do you think? Because you put so much mental energy, emotional energy. It's crazy how much you put in. So you're afraid to lose them. There's a fear, and then what happens is these little shots of fear, it makes you become very, very reactive around them. And that reactiveness around them, actually, funny enough, it overly reassures them that you're always going to be there. You become that Disney World to the person in LA. You become this view to the person in Charlotte, North Carolina. You know, to me, this view is amazing. I've just come here to go check it out. I specifically shoot videos in places that I'd like to see as a double focus of mine. I want to make a beautiful video for you, but I want to see it. I'm looking at this as a $100,000 view. Which one are you? Are you the $100,000 view, or are you the view that, you know, the person who doesn't even want to be bothered to walk up the stairs at the top of the parking lot? I don't want to walk up to the top of the parking lot to see the view. I could see it some other time. Which one are you? Well, how much are people investing in you? So that's one aspect of evolutionary psychology. We value that which we invest in. And I'll give you formats later to help to make that investment likely to happen. And then likewise, there's actually another piece of human psychology, and this goes even deeper. You've got to understand this, because this is crazy what I'm going to tell you. This is intense. I've mentioned this in other videos, and I feel like you could almost repeat this every video. It's that important. So that is the human mind's inability to be present to the moment unless we train it to do so. So you might have read a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, or A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. I've actually recommended in many different videos. And the reason why I think it's so important is that in that book, what it trains us to do is to get out of this weird mentality where we're always projecting into the future or ruminating on the past, and to get present to the moment. Try that right now, okay? I would challenge you to try it. See how unusual it is to do this. We're always either thinking about the future, possible outcomes, things that we're gonna do, or we tend to be thinking about the past and ruminating on it to get a sense of identity. It's very rare that we can be silent and just be aware in the present. Now, why is it that our psychology has done this? There's different possible explanations. Some of it is more in the spiritual realm, where we believe that we live in an energetically dense reality, in a spiritual reality, in a low vibration reality, and it causes us to be distanced from the present moment, because when we're in the present moment, we can really tap into our higher power. That's the more spiritual explanation, but let's not even worry about that in this video. Why don't we focus on the evolutionary aspect? So imagine that you're a prehistoric person. You haven't gone to school, you don't have a formal education, and the mind needs to evolve some kind of mechanism to always keep prodding you forward, right? Think about that. The mind needs to have certain mechanisms built into it to make sure that even if you were never educated on anything, you would just do the things that you need to do in order to survive, right? So that investment aspect, that we value what we invest in, we don't want to have a sunk cost of time and energy, that's one of those prehistoric mechanisms of the mind. Well, another one is that we don't get present very easily because we always want to be getting dragged into the future, right? We don't want to be easily satisfied. Imagine if you're just sitting here feeling so satisfied right now. No need to go hunt that animal. No need to go farm for, I guess there wouldn't be farming back then, no need to go pluck some vegetables. No need to build those social alliances. No need to move up, right? You just feel completely content. Well, in prehistoric times, somebody who lived in prehistory, if they had no education, they didn't have any kind of formal spiritual training to learn to act through being present, if they didn't have that, well, they would just sit there until they die, right? So that's why we're always projecting into the future, into some better future. We project constantly into some better future. We feel an inherent dissatisfaction. Part of our evolutionary wiring is to feel inherently dissatisfied, except at certain points. I believe that people in prehistory would have danced around a fire, mating, things like that, eating, celebrating. There would have been those moments of presence, maybe a rush in hunting, moments of presence. So it's a little bit of a mix, right? But you could argue that you want to be getting pulled in the future. So if that's the case, understand that part of the human psyche, A, to value what we invest in, but B, that we can't even be present. What that means, we're going to tend to take things for granted. How do we know this? Look, take a deep breath right now. Think about it. You're alive in one of the most prosperous times, actually currently the most prosperous time in human history. You can take a deep breath. You can look at the sky. You can look at the view, Charlotte, North Carolina. Look at this video. Look at your hands right now. Get present to just the little lines in your hands. Get present to the fact that there's blood moving through you right now. Think how amazing that is. Get present with me. But notice how much that goes against our natural wiring. We've got to train to become like that in most cases. And in our modern society, it can make it even worse because rather than being collaborative and realizing that in a way of looking at we're all one, we feel like we're against each other, always in competition. So it separates us. It makes us continually plotting on how to get ahead. So that being the case, it is not even in the nature of our psyche to appreciate what we have. It's part of our psyche to always be reaching to this thing that's a little bit out of reach, right? So if you're just giving and giving and giving and giving, and there's no boundary there where you would need something back, what happens? That person's psyche can't even process or realize what they're getting. They're not in a spiritual or psychological state to even absorb what it is that you have to give. In effect, what you've become is just like how the present moment is for you. Look, you yourself probably don't appreciate the present moment until you get whacked into it in some video like this, or by reading The Power of Now, or for your 20 minutes of meditation a day. Barring that, be honest, it's okay. I'm dealing with the same challenges. Most of the time, we're not that present. It takes training and effort to become present to the moment. We actually, the funny thing is, most people don't even enjoy life that much. To enjoy life, you actually have to train yourself a little bit on how to pump your own state, how to get present, how to have gratitude. That's why there's gratitude training, gratitude journals. Is the average person gratitude journaling? Doing gratitude training, is taking in the present, the beautiful moment of life. The average person is not doing that. The average person is always seeking to some future thing that they don't have. And the second that they get what they would want, they want something else, something else, something else. I have felt this myself in consumer culture where, and this is really weird what I'm going to tell you, okay? This is not something I'm super proud of. I've had it to where I would think of some article of clothing that I want or some jacket that I want, and I would fixate on it, the jacket, and this is consumer culture brainwashing me in effect. And I can tell that because it's a frenetic energy. It's not a joy-filled energy. So what happens is I'm thinking about the jacket, and I keep thinking about it, and then I go try it on a couple times. I go buy this stunning, incredible designer jacket. Makes the videos look nice. But anyway, as soon as I buy it, this is pretty weird what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to confess, not the most proud thing for me to you. Like a Kleenex box where you pull out a Kleenex, what happens? The next cleanup instantly comes up. The second that I would walk out of that Tom Ford or Dolce & Gabbana with that new jacket on me, I'd literally be thinking about the next jacket I don't have. I had the same thing with shoes. I'm thinking about the next pair of shoes. And a lot of people can even get that in dating. A lot of people have that, right? A lot of people complain, I met someone, it went so well, and then as soon as they had all of me, they discarded me. And it's because the person who they're dating or intimate with is at a point where as soon as they get the validation, they're out of there. Funny how that works. That's pretty intense. So on a psychological level, we can't even handle being present and having gratitude. So if you're making yourself too available, what does that mean? In most cases, it means that you're actually making, or you're removing yourself from their perceptual awareness. They're not even present enough to have the gratitude to absorb what it is that you have to offer. Then add to that into the soup that they haven't even had to invest in it, and now there's no sense of urgency whatsoever. Ideally, you want to flip that around. You want to get it to where there's a draw to invest in you, and people are plotting on it. You're a challenge. You are a challenge to people, and then they're continually thinking and plotting on how to get your attention. It's completely, utterly different, isn't it? Coming from a completely different place. So what we want to do next, just understanding these simple ideas, is we want to think about how we're going to come across as far as being self-validating, as far as holding that good energy inside of ourselves, and as far as being aware that we can put great vibes out there in self-amusement and then allow people to draw that great value that we have from us, allowing them the opportunity and the window and the space out of a courtesy to them to make the effort to invest. And then as they make the effort to invest, what happens is that they value it, and by making it a little bit of a challenge, because you're so much in your own flow, then what happens is that it resonates with their psyche. They're actually able to resonate with whatever it is that you have to offer because it maintains attention. It maintains a sense of urgency. It holds their reticular activation system in place on you, and it creates that halo effect where they focus on your positive qualities. This is a much better situation to be in than what I described earlier, where I'm kind of half out of it in a light autistic haze, feeling traumatized, extrapolating what I think I might want, and then just blabbing all the time and having people tune out, doing favor after favor after favor, and people thinking I'm even being annoying or manipulative, and instead flipping it around to where you just put out great vibes and people are just desperate to get your attention. So this is where our discussion is going to take a little bit of a turn into weirdness land, because I want you to recognize this sort of validation subworld where people chase after each other's validation and approval, and the person with the most validation will be the person who needs the least validation from other people. And then if you have the least validation, you'll tend to chase validation from those who have the most validation. Now, how does this work? Okay, so in any social interaction, there is one person reacting more to the other person than that person is reacting to them. And when you see this in an environment where somebody has a lot of social proof, or they have a lot of people who like them, it can get to the point that if the popular person comes up to you, you almost feel energy radiating off of them. And you begin to overanalyze everything they're doing. Any joke they say, you start laughing at. And anything they do, you start to react to. It makes everything into this big deal. In effect, what you have is selective focus. We call that reticular activation system, RAS. And if somebody's very popular, then what happens is your RAS will tend to zone in on them, and you'll start to react to them. And what's funny, it's like a validation seesaw, where as you start to react to them and care too much, that reinforces to that person that you need them, and then they completely take you for granted. Then what happens is, because they're feeding off of your approval, they care less about your approval, which then makes you hyper-focus on their approval, and then it makes you start doubling down and investing in them. Because they've been so much at the forefront of your perception, your reticular activation system, your selective focus is so zoned in on them that you put time into thinking about them, and then they feel that from you, which makes them invest less in you, and then you start investing more into them. So, like we said, the validation seesaw. And what happens is that as you start investing more, they don't care. But then conversely, you can actually flip that dynamic. And if you flip that dynamic to where you're the person who feels very validated, then you may trigger that in them, and then they start to really want your approval and your validation. And it's this continual give and take. Now, what generally happens is that whoever has more internal validation, or whoever has more popularity in the environment, that's the person in the kind of power position. It's sort of weird how this works, okay? So there's two different ways that it can work. One is with overt social proof, and the other is with implied social proof. So what is overt social proof? Well, let me be honest here, okay? If I'm running a seminar and everybody is there to see me, I have overt social proof. The audience is actually going to be feeding me energy. And so if you ever come to one of my live events, which I'd urge you to do, it's an amazing experience, I promise you. I'll not let you down. It's unbelievable. You'll find that if I mean, this is just generally what I observe when I'm speaking, to be honest. You'll find that if I come up to you and I look you deep in the eye, and the entire audience is looking at our interaction, and you see that I'm just filled up in my own validation, my own self-approval, and I look at you, you're gonna find that it feels electric. And that's kind of funny because you might not expect to feel that from some balding ginger wacky guy, like ex-autistic wacky guy, and I come up and I'm like, hi. And you're gonna feel that coming from me. Well, likewise, let's say that you go out to a social venue, maybe a bar, maybe a club, and you've been talking to a lot of people, having fun with people, you know everybody in the venue because you've just been meeting everybody, way too much fun, making meaningful connections and fun surface level connections with everybody, having the time of your life, right? Well, as you have all those people that know you, if you wind up meeting a new person and they can see that you know a lot of people, that validation seesaw, that approval seesaw, gets to the point where they don't take you for granted at all. And they start laughing at all your jokes. They start becoming very drawn to you. And you'll see it because oftentimes the dynamic flips to where they're like, what's your name? Where are you from? Can we hang out? Can we trade social media? Here, meet my friends. I like you. And you'll see them just throwing themselves at you. It's really crazy. Any little joke that you make, they're blowing up laughing. Any story that you tell, they're completely hooked because you have that overt social proof. You've been talking with everybody and they can see that. Also, to be fair, that talking with everybody, it kind of feeds you a lot of energy because it's so much fun. You get present. It's a beautiful experience. Well, sometimes you're not in a captive environment, like say a bar or club or festival or something. You know, it's not an environment where people are aware of who's popular, who's not. Maybe you're just meeting somebody fresh and there's nobody else around. That's where an implied social proof comes in, an implied popularity. Because what happens is, when you feel beautiful and amazing in your own body, remember what we said, there's the validation or approval seesaw. In any social interaction, there's one person reacting more to the other person than that person's reacting to them. So if you're just feeling amazing in your self-validation, and you say hi, and you just look, they're often going to feel that and they start becoming very drawn into you and really wanting your approval. If you suggest to trade social media, they're a lot more likely to follow your story or see what you're up to, look at your pictures. If you say, let's go hang out at some other cool place, they're a lot more likely to go with you. Well, look at the difference that we have here. It's very, very different, isn't it? Because on one level, there's what we talked about earlier, where I said in my youth, I would see somebody and I felt terrible in my own body because I have light level autism. I've had a difficult upbringing where I didn't feel loved. I didn't have a lot of self-love. I'm looking for love from other people. I'm in effect trying to get other people to reparent me. I'm trying to reparent myself. I'm trying to feel that love. I'm trying to get it from somewhere else. I don't really feel vibes well because I'm so unconscious and unaware. I just can't feel the general vibe and the fun. I'm disconnected from it. And I'm just in this contracted state, kind of like a leech or vampire, just trying to get some kind of validation. And also a sweethearted person, a nice person that wants to just have a family. And I'm like, Brent, the glasses. Here's 19 million fun facts about the glasses. Hey man, yeah, great seminar, right? Having fun. Glasses, you know what you could do, Brent? Here's what you could do. Totally ignoring the vibe. What's up, Brent? Ignoring the vibe, okay? So what we want to do is think to ourselves, well, how do we fix this? And I've talked about this in a lot of other discussions that we've had, and it can come, we can go very deep on this, but the very quick summary is that it comes down to finding your self-love, working on self-love, working on self-beliefs, things like trauma release that we've taught in our team, amazing, and things like presence work to get more present to the moment, gratitude, learning to be grateful for what you do have, getting present, instead of being in that consciousness that we talked about on the roof of the parking lot where we're always looking for something else, being grateful for what we do have, getting present. And a lot of it's also external things. I really feel that it's half internal, half external in a way. Because the people who sort of focus on the spiritual growth side, they'll always say nothing external should matter. And people who focus more on the external lifestyle side, money making, things like that, they say, why would I want to be happy if I don't have money? I like to draw from all sources if I'm being honest. I feel like there's validity in a lot of different perspectives. So I love the spiritual perspective of really working out your beliefs, getting rid of trauma, presence work, loving yourself, healing, gratitude, feeling the energy, being connected, realizing that we're in a collaborative frame, we're all one. But I also enjoy having a lifestyle that I've set up to where, A, I know how to meet a ton of new people. I mean, how big is that? Come on. Knowing that you can meet new people anytime, that's big. How about having a really well laid out social media to where every day you're waking up with 5 or 10 or 15 people trying to meet up with you, trying to get a date, trying to hang out, trying to make friends, trying to network. Come on. That's a very powerful thing. I don't want to just sit there meditating in ashram and I don't even have a good way to meet new people. I don't have a social media profile set up. I want to have those things. Things like parties, a place where you can receive energy, whatever it is, knowing how to go meet new people, knowing how to initiate conversation, have beautiful interactions, make meaningful connections, even having fun, quick, fast, surface level interactions that feed you and feed others because you're offering value, you're vibing, knowing how to raise the vibe. I love that. And having a life that you love, passions, purpose, and healing and changing and growing to where when you're at that venue and you're meeting people, you have so much going on in your life and internally you're so healthy. And maybe you've also taken a lot of action in that venue. You're in a state of social momentum. You're talking to lots of people. You're taking so much action, you're shutting off the thinking mind. You've got even some clear, overt social proof even by the end of the night, but likewise, even just feeling it from the start. That's so much fun. And what that does, that when you're meeting somebody, they can feel that validation seesaw. And because you're not overwhelming them, because we tend to overwhelm when we feel like we're not good enough. We tend to be disconnected from the vibe when we feel like we're not good enough. When someone's above us, we start self-qualifying, overthinking, looking at all their mannerisms, when we're staying in our own flow, stay in our own beautiful flow. What happens then is that validation and approval seesaw stays in our favor, and any little joke, hey, I don't know about that. I don't know if we could talk anymore. I'm just kidding. I love you. These little jokes. Are you sure about that? What do you mean am I sure about that? Okay, tell me more. Okay, right? It's like everything just works. You say, you know what? Let me tell you a little bit about the glasses. Do you want me to? Yes! Tell me about the glasses! All right, look, we're gonna break it down. And then you even say it in a fun vibe. It's not this reaching vibe. You might even do the glasses breakdown, the pros and cons of the glasses. But it's coming from an entirely different place. They have asked for it. They want it. They want approval. And as you're speaking to them and engaging with them, they appreciate it. And because you've been a challenge a little bit, and you've been a little bit outside of their immediate accessibility, you're not so available energetically, and they've had to push to get that. Now all of a sudden, you become that man on the mountain that they had to climb the mountain to learn the secret to life. Sir, ma'am, what is the secret to the glasses? The secret to the glasses is that even if you had a difficult time putting in contact lenses, you can go back 3 or 4 times. You could get clear glasses. You could get a glass with a thick frame. There's so many different things about glasses, I'll tell you. Thank you. Thank you. Why? Because you've taken the time to sort yourself out internally, to build a lifestyle externally that feeds you, to heal, to get connected to vibes, to get connected to energy. And now what's happened is that people have to earn your attention. In earning your attention, they see you in a completely different way, and they value what it is that you have to say. What a difference. What a difference in my own life it is to be coming from that kind of frame, not lost as a young man, confused, and just begging for that attention. So that being the case, understand that approval seesaw in any social interaction, there's one person reacting more to the other person, that person's reacting to them. Remember what we said, we value what we invest into. We don't want the sunk cost. Our consciousness won't even let us be aware of things that aren't a little bit out of reach. So we're resonating with where the person is at. We're resonating with their evolution, And ultimately, we're showing empathy rather than judgment for where they're at. So I asked you at the beginning of our talk here together what it meant if you were being taken for granted. And I hope that what we've done here is laid out a vision for how you could not be taken for granted, how to heal yourself emotionally, how to understand the psyche that most people have, how to understand our evolutionary wiring as far as the need to triple down and rationalize investment, but also the way our psyche is as far as being constantly dragged forward by our ego as a vestige of our evolutionary psychology. I hope that also motivated you to get present, to not be dragged around like a puppet by that. I hope that we've talked about connecting, meeting people, networking, and most of all, I hope that we've really drilled down on a process where you could break out of this and be somebody who's at your best and is able to offer more value to the world. Remember, as you speak, as you're engaging, stay with that value that you built. And if you choose to make yourself vulnerable and let someone in, make sure that they've earned their way in, because people value what they earn. And ultimately, you will value what you have earned in yourself. Because that peace, that happiness, that great sense of self-esteem that you will have earned, you will now value as you've walked through pain, as you've walked away from addictions and bad situations that weren't feeding you. And instead, you've chosen to double down on yourself. You will value that more than anything in this world. That has been my experience. And I'm just here in Charlotte, North Carolina, enjoying every park, everything about this environment, because it's a $100,000 view. And this is my sharing with you of that $100,000 view and a set of ideas that has costed me probably millions that I've messed up on. And I really hope that in some way, somehow, you can let it land. I'm here for you. We're in this journey together. So thank you so much for being a part of my life. We have a lot more to come. I'm excited to be on your team and to work together with you in synergy together so that we can both go as a team to the promised land. I'm actually about to go teach right now a little bit more. Had a great time sharing with you, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.